you please come on for me? I'm going to look myself up. You cannot talk. You think you are talking to your...
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. This is an internal medicine interest group of Nigeria. I will welcome you to our webinar today. So we're just trying to wait for like 5 extra minutes, 5:10, while we just start our. Well, while we wait, I would like to. Firstly, this is Ari Okulagwe, President, Internal Medicine Group of Nigeria, and I'm so happy to see you guys all here. While we are waiting to start, I want to call on the head of the event team to give an opening remark and to talk about the IMGN and a little brief about IMGN. So I'll call on Alabi Badudin to give an opening remark. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Please, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir. Okay. Oh, okay. Good day, everyone. I'm Alabi Badudin Olalikon. And on behalf of the Internal Medicine Interest Group of Nigeria, it is my honor to welcome you all to today's webinar, which is titled The Path to Internal Medicine Residency in the United States. The Internal Medicine Interest Group is more than just an association. It is a community built to foster unity among medical students and doctors passionate about internal medicine. Our goals include creating a space for collaboration, providing mentorship opportunities, research opportunities, and encouraging the exchange of ideas and shapes well-rounded future internists. We are also committed to empowering medical students with knowledge about various subspecialties of internal medicine while bridging gaps in access to global opportunities through initiatives like this webinar. So the Internal Medicine Interest Groups of Nigeria also works to connect aspiring internists with resources, mentors, and pathways that can propel their careers forward. Today's program is one of the many ways we aim to guide medical students towards a fulfilling career, both locally and internationally. And the path to internal medicine residency in the United States can seem to be doubting, but it is not insurmountable. So by bringing some experts together, we hope to demystify this journey and provide actionable steps for success. So we are thrilled to have an exceptional lineup of speakers who will share their expertise and personal experience with us. And I encourage everyone to stay engaged, ask questions in the chat box, and take full advantage of these unique opportunities. Once again, I thank you all for being part of this significant event. Together, we can build a future where internal medicine continue to inspire, support, and empower experienced internists across Nigeria. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your opening remark. Really appreciate. So, as you said, today we are going to be having theory speakers for our sessions today. We're going to be having theory speaker, and we are so proud of the opportunity and the privilege to have these people around us and among us willing to tell us about their experience, to tell us about the process, and to give us insights and to build such an amazing sociality with us. So we are very proud of everyone, and we're proud of our speakers, and we really appreciate them. So we'll be calling on I'm going to be calling on someone to give the citation of the first speaker. So immediately after that, we'll start. So for today's meeting, the manner of the meeting is going to be, we're aiming to achieve the meeting within 2 hours. Each speaker will be allowed to speak within 15 to 20 minutes, and they have the part they're going to speak on. Then after that, we'll now be having question session for everyone. So the questions may be directed to any speaker, and some questions might be general, which we sort and direct. And also, any speaker that also feels free or wants to add extra insight will be allowed to. So thank you very much. So Captain Stanley, I would like you to read the citation of the first speaker, so we'll proceed.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Please, am I audible?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you can hear you. Go on.
Okay,
We can hear you.
citation. I'm reading the citation for the first speaker. Dr. John Ogedebe is a second-year internal medicine resident at Trinity Health in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with a strong interest in hematology-oncology. He earned his MBBS from Delta State University in 2019. After graduation, he served as a medical officer at Lifeway Medical Center and General Hospital Nasarawa. He then completed externships in the United States, including at Norman Regional Health System in Oklahoma and Humboldt Park Health, where he honed his skills in patient management and clinical research, following which he marched into an internal medicine residency in 2023. Dr. Ogedebe has also made significant contributions to the medical field through various research publications, focusing on topics ranging from diabetes management and endocrine disorders to emerging infectious diseases. Please let us react with our emojis as we welcome a doctor par excellence, Dr. John Ogedebe. Dr. John, you are welcome.
Sorry, Mr. Stanley, sorry. I think there is a mix-up if you check it. Dr. John is not going to be the first speaker. Dr. Zubeda Idris Said is going first. So sorry for that. So thank you very much. So just read the citation for Dr. Zubeda Idris Said. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Zubeda. Okay, Dr. Zubeda is a educated medical doctor with strong focus on health equity and advocacy. She earned her MBBS from Usman Dan Fodio University, Sokoto in 2021. Her strong work ethics and enthusiasm for learning have led her to achieve excellence throughout her career, graduating as the best graduating student of her medical school class. She has a strong passion for volunteering and medical education. She founded Bloom Health and Educational Outreach, which is a non-profit organization that provides free medical care to underserved communities. Through her outreach initiative, she educates communities on disease prevention and distributes essential health resources. She supports the next generation of healthcare professionals by guiding USMLE candidates with a Kainji online community and offering personalized tutoring for Step 1 and Step 2 exams. Dr. Idris Said is eager to collaborate on innovative healthcare projects aiming to bridge gaps, promote equity, and inspire others. Please let us react to our emojis as we welcome Dr. Said to the forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Please confirm if I'm audible.
Yes, yeah, we can
Yes,
hear
you
you.
are audible.
All right. So good to see all of you here. I have a presentation, a PowerPoint. So I'd like to share my screen. Sorry, come on. Finding it. Sorry, I'm finding difficult to share. I don't know what I'm not doing. Please confirm. Can you see the screen now?
No, ma.
Oh, so that's the problem. I think I'm finding it difficult to share. Should I just continue without the screen? Okay. So can you see now?
Yes, ma. Yes, ma. You can see it.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So good evening, everyone. Good evening to the co-presenters.
Good evening, ma.
So I'm going to be taking the topic taking and passing the USMLE exams. So insights for a successful journey, just from my own perspective. So let's start with why are we going for the USMLE? Because if we have a why, it's a very tedious journey that requires a lot of dedication, and you need to have something that motivates you. So the United States medical licensing exam is just one that gives you the access to practice in the United States. So why will you choose to practice in the United States? There are a lot of reasons. The United States is one that has like a world-class medical training that is unparalleled. You can't find any training anywhere like the US, of course. So when you get your training from the United States, you have like fit to practice almost in any part of the world, you'll be accepted. And so another advantage is that you have a comprehensive and structured training. You know that you're starting your internal medicine residency, 3 years, it's 3 years. If it's another specialty, there's some specialty like 4 years, it's 4 years, and you know you're done. And you like you have like a structural system where you know what you're anticipating next. Everything is well organized. And the United States also gives you the opportunity to have diverse clinical exposure, because in the United States, you have different people from different parts of the world coming around. So you get people from Australia, you could get people from Asian countries, from Africa, everywhere we just gather there. So it's something that, oh, if I'm maybe in Nigeria, I may not get access to manage patients that are from different parts of the world. So that gives you that diverse perspective to be able to manage patients anywhere you find yourself. So United States also gives you that broad research and academic opportunities that you may also get in other places, even though you can, but it cannot be as good as their own system there. Because it's already even incorporated from being a medical student, and when you're in residency, it's much, much robust. You get to present in top conferences, both national, regional conferences. This boosts your profile and makes you fit to stand anywhere in the world. So it also gives you a broad career opportunities. You can sub-specialize in a lot of sub-specialty. For example, now you do internal medicine. You now choose, okay, after internal medicine, I want to do cardiology. After your cardiology, I want to do interventional cardiology, or I want to do just managing heart failure patients only. So it's as sub-specialized as that you just focus on one specific aspect. You're not just seeing every patient. So it also gives you a competitive compensation and benefits. The the remuneration is very good. You have insurance that can take care of your health, that of your family. You have a good place to stay. You can give yourself the best life. You can travel around the world comfortably without being scared that, oh, I'm not going to get paid, or my pay is not enough. So you can just live that your dream life. So it's also a standardized pathway for professional validation where everybody needs to go through this United States medical licensing exam before you can get the licensure to practice. Whether you are a professor already, once you want to go through the US pathway, you must take the USMLE exams. There's no any other way you can get into the system. Similarly to their own graduates, they must also take the USMLE exams before practicing. So that's your why. So that why is what is going to keep you going through the process. So what is the USMLE? It is an acronym for the United States Medical Licensing Exam, which is a standardized examination that provides you medical licensure to practice in the United States. This exam has 3 steps. They are called step 1, step 2, and step 3. So previously, the step 2 used to be 2 exams. It's called CK and CS, but during the COVID time, the CS was scraped out. So we have now only the step 1, which tests your basic science knowledge. Then the step 2 CK that tests your clinical knowledge, and the step 3 that tests your clinical skills and management. So the step 3 is more advanced and is more robust. So when you want to start, it depends on what you want to go for. You can take step 1 before step 2, or you can take step 2 before step 1. Anyone you want to do that fits you can go for that. But you cannot take step 3 before any of step 1 or 2, because for step 3 you need your ECFMG certificate. And for you to get an ECFMG certificate, you must have taken step 1, step 2, and OET to get that certificate. So it's only for step 1 and step 2 that you have the luxury of choosing which one you want to take first. So the general success tips that you need to succeed is that there are a lot of materials, a lot of resources. You go to YouTube, you go to different forums, people will tell you, I use this, I use that. But there are some that are high yield that are must do that you must always include in whatever you're doing, whatever practice method you want to use. So you should also have a realistic studies plan, because why I say realistic is that at times you'll be like, oh, today I'm going to finish 1 block of UWorld, and you and I know that you are going to work from, let's say, 8 to 6. When you come back, you're already tired. So how will you finish 1 block at that time? Maybe some people are so very energetic, they are so dedicated, they can do it, but it may be unrealistic at times, because this study is one that you want to do you want to do it well, not just I just want to read the questions and go. You want to read them, understand them, and internalize the stuff, because you need to know the concept. It's not something that, oh, I just want to go cram and go and pour. It's not like that. When it comes to the USMLE, you must know this stuff before you're able to pass it. Anybody that you see passing this exam has put in the work. It's not anything like luck or something. They've put in the work and they've done very well. So you should have a realistic study plan, and you should have like a date. Like I used to advise people that when you want to take your USMLE exam, don't just say I want to take it. Say I want to take it in 6 months, and this I'm going to do. Because when you just open it, give yourself that open time frame that I'm going to take the exams, you continue to postpone it. I've seen people that have been preparing for this exam for 3 years. So it could be that bad. So make a realistic time frame that I'm going to take this exam in 6 months. This is the schedule. I'm going to be having like 8 hours a day, because now I have less work to do. So that 8 hours is 8 hours. You must achieve whatever you plan for the day. So time management is key. It's not you'll be studying, you're checking social media at the same time. That's not going to help. You need to dedicate your time. You need to practice and practice and practice, because for those stuff to stick, it's not something you want to do just once. You want to do it over again, so that they stick with you and be with you. So you need to prioritize your mental health too and physical well-being, because USMLE is mentally draining. You're going to get tired. That one is sure. You get tired, you get frustrated, you'll be like, who sent me to even start all this journey? Because it's so tedious. It's not like what we're used to, like in medical school. Even though that we know our medical school has taught us tenacity, we are very resilient Nigerians. I can say for sure, and I give us that kudos. We are very hardworking, but this one is a different ball game entirely. You need to give yourself that mental focus. If you need help, seek help. You can't do it alone. That if you can't even do it alone, that's just the truth. Nobody should just do it that, oh, I will just go into my room, only me will read for USMLE and pass. It's not done like that. I've seen people that did that and they failed, and they are now coming back to make network with people, connect with people. This meeting today should be a forum for you to not just log in and go out. Look for people, connect. If you're the type of person that is very good with group discussions, you should get group of, just say, let's say 4 or 5 people. Don't add too many people, because at the end of the day, that group is going to get dissolved. Some people will come today, I have this excuse, they will not come. So you need that small network, like a close net of yourselves, where you can always check on yourself. Oh, Zubaida, come. Why are you not here today? You need to be here. You need to be serious. You need somebody that will motivate you, that will tell you that even today that you are tired, you can still learn. So those are the kind of team members you want to work with. You don't just want to be working alone. You cannot work alone in the USMLE pathway. People must help you, because it's not even all about the exams. When you come to application, which the other speakers will talk about, will tell you how networking is very, very important. You can't do it alone. So you need dedication, you need patience, you need mentorship. Get mentors, ask questions. So let's say the USMLE Step 1 exam is a 1-day examination that is divided into 8 60-minute blocks, and it is administered in a 1 8-hour testing session. So what does that mean? The exam is 1 day. Usually they divide the questions into, all together is like 280 questions. So each block is 40 questions. So you have 7 blocks in total. So 7 blocks, 40 questions, 280 questions in total. But you are given 8 hours. So the 7 hours will be for your exams. The main core exam time is the 7 hours. The remaining 1 hour will be 45 minutes for break, and 15 minutes for like a tutorial when you log into the system for you to be able to access your questions. So while you are doing it, you must ensure that you finish every block that you started within that 1 hour, because once it's 1 hour, it's going to get off, and you need to just take a 5-minute break, you come back and continue. So the Step 1 exams assess whether you understand, it assesses your understanding and how you're able to apply the important basic sciences, so your anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, pathophysiology, pharmacology, immunology, microbiology, biostatistics, ethics, public health, and psychiatry. So for us, ethics is a little challenging, because we don't do ethics most of the time in our schools here in Nigeria. So you need to pay more attention to that. And also some biostats may be quite difficult, but there are things that obviously you can do with just making up your mind. You're able to learn them and you can do well. Trust me, because I know that Nigerians are very good and they're hardworking. So what are the resources you need for these exams? As I've said, we have a lot of resources out there, but there are some that are must have. So let's start with we have like the reference book. So the reference book is this first aid USMLE step 1 is a reference book that is updated every year. You can see this one is 2024, this for this year. So by 2025, they will release another one. So, but it's not something that you need to panic about, because even if when you see 2024, in 2025, it still holds. It's just that they just added a few new points, not really something that is very different. So you can get the soft copy when it's out. People tend to send them on Telegram groups. You surely get access to it once you're in a lot of groups. So you can use that as your reference book. So you have the Board and Beyond. This is a video series that was made by one of the American consultants. Very, very resourceful material that you need. You can also get access to it offline on Telegram groups. So, but some people pay for it online, but you don't need to pay. It's free everywhere. So there's also the Patoma. I know a lot of medical students would have come across this. Some read Robbins and Contrast, some read this Patoma. So Patoma is also important. Then you need a question bank, which is UWorld. UWorld is must to do. Even if you're not going to do anything here, you must do UWorld. That's the number one tool here. So we also have Amboss. Amboss is also a question bank like UWorld. It's as good as UWorld. I use it as like a support to, maybe for example, if I read something in UWorld I didn't understand, then I go to Amboss to check just a little things, but it was not my main resource for step 1. So Sketchy is like a video series too. There's Sketchy Micro, there's Sketchy Pharmacology. So this is good for people that love to watch cartoons. So most of the microbiology difficult terms are like explained in an easier way for them to remember. For me, I didn't really like it, but I don't like cartoons. So, but people that like cartoons, they actually benefited from it. So MBME assessment tool. So the process for your preparation for this USML is that you are going to learn before you start to assess yourself. So you have a learning tool and an assessment tool. So UWorld, Amboss, those ones are the question bank, they are your learning tools. So when you learn, then you now come back to assess yourself, your readiness for your exam by using the MBMEs. So the preparation pathway will be that you have a first stage. The first stage is where you build your foundation. So averagely, this can take 3 to 4 months for maybe someone that has like 8 to 10 hours to study a day. So for that time, what you're just going to do is just to like get familiar with the stuffs. You want to like have a foundation to build on. So at this time, the major things you want to use for this your foundation building, you should have one, your question bank should be there, which is this UWorld or Amboss, whatever one you're able to access and you can get. So because there are online resources that you need to pay for, you need to do subscription. You can do 6 months subscription. You can do 1 year, depending on what you can afford, and depending on the time that you said that you want to write your offline ones for UWorld, which you see around. People have screenshots, but copyright issues. So, but people still use it. But you are able to time yourself. You're able to gauge your readiness. You're able to see like where you're having major issues that you need to work on. So that's one advantage of getting the online subscription. So what I usually say that if you want to do, for me now, let me take a typical scenario. If I want to study today, let me say, for example, I want to study congenital heart diseases. So what I do is I'll first go to my Boards and Beyond. I'll watch a video on congenital heart diseases there. So when I watch videos on it, I have like a baseline. The next thing I will do is I will now go to my UWorld online to create questions that are related to congenital heart diseases. So when you create it, it could be like 10, 20 questions that comes out depending on what UWorld has. So you now do those questions. So you read the question, because the way the questions are, they are like clinical scenarios. That's how they are. So you just choose one answer. So you choose the answer. If it's right or wrong, you see it. then you read the explanation, and you get the concept. You don't want to rush through this process. Trust me, you want to take your time and digest every sentence from the explanation. That is where the main meat of the matter is, because that concept will be tested in another different way. It's similar thing they are just going to test. Okay, they want to test the technology of follow. That's what you're going to see again, but they will not say the same question. So, but when you're able to get the concept, no matter how they twist the question, you're able to go your way out. So after you do your questions on congenital disease, so you now come back to your first aid, your reference book, and read it. If you notice something, I didn't say do like your videos first before going to read first aid, because when you read it, you still don't understand, and you still not get the questions when you come to do them. Because first aid is a condensed material, very condensed. Whatever you're going to be reading from it straight ahead, you're just going to be cramming a lot of things. So it's better for you to first do the questions on your word, get the explanation of the concept, then before you now come back to your reference book to just arrange your stuffs in your brain. So similarly, that's what you also do when it comes to pathology. Pathology, you use the pathoma to study pathology related stuff. The pathoma also has videos that you can use to assess them. And the most important part of the pathoma is the first 3 chapters. You need to do that, read them over and over again, because you're going to get a lot of questions from that first 3 chapters. Even if you don't have time to do everything, you must do that first 3 chapters for the pathoma. So after doing that, by these 3 to 4 months, you should be able to complete the 3,000 plus questions that are in UWorld, because UWorld updates every time. I think the question should be about 3,005 now. I think when I did mine was like 3,100 thereabouts. I think it should be about 3,500 now. So when you finish that foundation building, so that means in your foundation building, you're going to finish your UWorld first pass, you're going to finish your first aid first pass, and maybe the above and beyond first pass if you have time. Some people might keep watching videos. It's not compulsory, but you must do that UWorld and your first aid. So if you like add videos, if you don't want, you can remove it. So but me, I always advise to do that, so that it would be like you attended a lecture, someone taught you, then you're not answering questions, then you're not using your reference book to streamline your stuff. So after you do your foundation building, you need to take like an MBME, which is this one that I said is an assessment tool. So this MBME will now help you to gauge, okay, what score am I getting? So some people maybe are some people are very good, they will even get like 60%, 70%. So that tells you that okay, you have tried, obviously. But before you take your step 1 examinations, you should ensure that your MBME score should be at least 2/3. That's about 67%, because the MBME is like 200 questions. So you should be able to score at least 2/3 of that 200 questions before you can say, okay, I can go and write the exams. For me, I usually advise people that if you can get up to 70%, that gives you like more assurance. And the good thing now, pass and fail. And again, some people say it's not so good because it makes some people just feel like, oh, I say I've got 60%, let me just go and write the exam. But it just pass and fail now. But it's not always like that. Some people, 1 or 2 marks can just be what will just make you like fail the exams. So you just need to ensure that you are well ready. Don't be carried away that because it's pass and fail, I'll just go and write it anyhow when I'm not ready. You should ensure that you are very well ready before going to take the exams. So the active learning and practice now is now that since I've taken my first MBME, I should be able to identify, okay, biochemistry was my weak point, cardiology is my weak point, nephro is my weak point, so I need to do more work there. So in this place, that's where you now start identifying your weaknesses, addressing them. You are now doing more questions. So if you exhausted your UWorld question, you felt that you still don't understand that concept, go to Amboss, create questions on Amboss and do that same concept again for you to be able to retain it better. So Amboss is also online subscription. It's difficult to get it offline. What is so, but they have this 5-day. You get 5-day free trial. They'll give you 50 questions. So that 50 questions, you can just be using maybe multiple emails to do that. That's just a way to go about it. But these things are expensive. it's difficult for us in Nigeria to be able to afford a lot of these things. They are in dollars, and you can see the exchange rate is very, very high. So you just have to be economical about what you are spending. So after you've done doing this, your active learning and practice, you also want to continue doing more MBMEs. So for now, the MBMEs that are important are MBME 25 to 31, because they have MBME 1 to 31. So those MBME 1, 2, 3, 4, they are those ones that were used in the 90s or the early 2000s. They're already outdated now. So the ones that are currently in use are that 25 to 31. So you want to start doing 25, you move to maybe after you learn your weaknesses from 25, you review 25 very well. You move maybe after 2 weeks, you do 26. After another 2 weeks, you do 27. You're continuously until you're ready for your exams. So your dedicated period very, like, you are now simulating the exam hours. You need to sit down and get like maybe like 2 MBMEs or 1.5 to do at a stretch. Take like 10 minutes break in between one blocks so that you not just get exhausted. So the reason is you want to also gauge your tenacity. I knew someone that wrote this exam recently, and a problem was that she had issue with tenacity, and that's why she failed. It's not that she doesn't know this stuff, because it's tiring sitting for 8 hours for an exam. It's not that you're just sitting to gist. You're going to sit and be doing mental work. So you need to be able to like have that tenacity to be able to sit for that long hours. Some people have like maybe back pains from just their continuous study. You need to get your analgesics on that day. In between, you take it. So all these little things, they matter. It might seem like something that people will not tell you, but they are very, very important, because once you are tired, trust me, you're going to be missing the questions, and there are things that you know. So that's how it's painful. There are things that you know that on a normal day, if they wake you up, you are fresh, you can just give the answer with closing your eyes. But because you are tired, you're not able to give it. So you want to use that dedicated period to gauge your tenacity, to be able to fit in for that DD. So that's for your dedicated period. And also, you also continue doing your MBMEs. You want to ensure that your MBME scores are progressively increasing. So now, am I ready to take my exams? So first thing, you want to ensure that you have completed your study, you've completed all your materials, you have done your UWorld, you have done your first aid over and over and over again. You want to be reading first aid, like you're not getting tired, like you're reciting it, something like that. So you want to also ensure your MBME scores are progressively increasing. So if I started with 50%, next one I should get 55, next one I should get 60, 65, 68, 70, 75. Not that you are having 60, you are stopped like maybe 55 continuously, and you say you want to go and write, oh, I'm tired, let me just go. A lot of people do that. They're just tired and they'll just go and write their exams, and they will not have issues at the end of the day. So because it's better for you to dash somebody that money for your exams and to fail this exam. I'm saying that now because of doing this our application, we saw what it was like for you to have a bad record of failure. Failure can come at times, of course. Nobody can predict what life has, but it's better to avoid it if it's something you can avoid. If you feel you are sick, schedule your exams. It's better to dash somebody that $1,200 that you're going to use to pay for your exam than to have a failure. So there's also something called UWorld self-assessment. When you do the UWorld subscription, they will give you like a self-assessment that you can use to test yourself whether you're ready for the exams too. So you can also use that. Why? There's 1, 2, 3. So scheduling the exam, usually you start with your ECFMG registration. That one you would have even done it maybe before you even start reading. There's this registration for ECFMG certification. It's about $160. You do that, you do your notarization. Then over time, when you have your money, maybe when you have finished like maybe around this your active learning, so you now say, okay, I think I can take my exam maybe in March next year. So if I'm taking it in March next year, I'm thinking of March. So I'm going to choose March, April, May as my eligibility period, because when you are paying for your exams, you're going to choose 3 consecutive months that you think you can be ready. So when you do that, you are able to like gauge that, okay, in the next 3 months, I'm going to take these exams, and this is what I'm supposed to do. So you just choose eligibility period. So you should ensure that there's knowledge mastery. You want to be sure that once they ask you, once they are telling you, like, there's a way that you know you're ready for this exam. When they start even reading the question, before they reach the end, you know the answer. Many times, you know where this question is going to. So that's the stage you want to get to before you go to write your exams. So your performance trend, I've talked about that. You should ensure that MBME scores are progressively increasing. Your exam stamina, 8 hours. You should be training yourself. Health issues if you have postponed your exams. Confidence level. Confidence is very important. Because if you are not confident, you're going to be doubting your answers. Two answers will look alike and you're going to be failing. So you need to be sure that, you need to understand the way the MBME sets the question. So that's what is going to give you confidence that, okay, when I'm choosing my answer, I'm supposed to choose this over this. So you should also have the mental readiness that you want to take this exam. So then you should do simulation practice. Simulation practice of you want to be mimicking the exams, which is what I've said, that it will help you to get your tenacity. It will help you with time management, because on the day of the exam, you want to manage your time. 1 hour for 40 questions. You see that, 1 hour for 40 questions is much. It's not much. The questions are long. Before you start reading it and digesting it, it's going to waste time. So test day essentials, you want to, because the exam is going to be taken in Accra, Ghana, which is the closest place to us here in Nigeria. So you want to ensure you're able to book your flights, you're able to get your hotel, good sleep before the night of your exams. No TDB, please, because it's a long exam. Go with enough water, food that you'll be taking in between your breaks. If you need your medications, you go with them. Just things that are going to make you comfortable, please get them. So then, of course, finance. So congratulations, you have passed step 1. So what next? You need to breathe. You need to pat yourself on the back because you've done excellently well. Just have fun with family. Do what makes you happy, just to encourage yourself. But you don't need to take the break for a very long time. At least 2 weeks, max 1 month, you should start your step 2. Because the reason is step 1 is the foundation for step 2. If you start forgetting your steps in step 1, it's going to haunt you when you're preparing for step 2. So step 2 is rigorous, and step 2 is very important. The reason I say step 2 is very important is that when you want to apply for match, it's your step 2 score that is going to determine whether many hospitals are going to call you or not. And we saw that here. So the higher your score, the higher your chance of being called for an interview. So usually the pass mark is 214, but you don't even want to score 220. You don't want to score 230. You also want to, maybe 240 is a good score. Even 230 is, it's not that it's a bad score, but it's just that some people are now scoring 270, 280. So it now makes the competition so high that you need to put in a lot of effort. It's not that you don't know these things or you're not good enough, but the competition out there is much. So step 2 CK is just going to test more of how you can apply those basic stuff you learned in step 1 in like diagnosis of diseases mainly, and some management scenario is also there. So for the step 2, your resources are just a little different from step 1. You also need your UWorld, which is our question bank. UWorld has like 4,000 plus questions for step 2. So for UWorld, for the reference book, you can see that step first aid is not here. First aid step 2 is not here. That's because a lot of people have given review that first aid step 2 is not high yield for the step 2 exams. So most of the time, you still need to go back to that your step 1 book as your reference book, in addition to this white coat companion. It's not compulsory to do white coats. I didn't do white coat a lot. I just did a very little, like, it was not even something I would say I did safe. So it's not that important, but you can just have it just for you to be able to annotate a little stuff from you or the need. So you need Divine Intervention podcast. Very important. It has a lot of high yield audio podcasts where you get stuffs handy. Like you can just be washing, you are putting your earpods, you are cooking, you are in the gym, continue listening to Divine. Like there was a time that whatever I'm doing, I'm always with Divine. My name is Divine. I really like that line whenever she starts, because it makes life easy. You just read something and you just tell you that, okay, when you see this question, they say the next best step. It's not that the answers are not correct from the options they'll give you, but there's one that is more important than another. So Divine helps you to bring out those informations and make them very clear. So then there are some, or it's not all the podcasts that you need to listen to. There are some that are very, very high yield. And when you come to that time, of course, when you are in a lot of groups, you get it and you're able to like make reference to it. Ambos is very important in step 2. The reason why I said that is that the step 2 resources, there are some things that are very important for them to test, which are this vaccination. In the US, they are very big on vaccine. Screening, they like to screen for a lot of diseases before patients start having those diseases. Ethics, the ethics in step 2 is much. So patient safety, quality improvement. Then there are some places they call high yield topics in AMBOS. So you must do all these things in addition to UWorld, because UWorld is a little deficient when it comes to this vaccination screening. The ethics is a bit good, but that of AMBOS is better. So some people can even just say, okay, I'm going to do only AMBOS for my step 2, and they do well. If it's okay, you just want to say, I can afford AMBOS, and since AMBOS has everything, it's okay. And then AMBOS has these learning resources also that is like a textbook. It's not a textbook actually, but articles that are very useful. So another thing you want to incorporate in your study is something called clinical mastery forms, CMS forms. They have 1 to 8, but 6, 7, 8 are the high yield that you must do. So they have different courses, because it's what the US students use when they are doing their posting. So when they are doing internal medicine posting and they want to write their like end of posting, it is those CMS form they used to study for the posting. So the CMS form, they're actually simpler than the exam, but the advantage of doing it is that you have a diverse range of thinking about how a concept is tested. So other courses that are also available for the CMS form are family medicine, surgery, psychiatry, pediatrics, obstetrics and gynecology, then neurology. So then DIP is the Divine Intervention Podcast. Then you need to do your MBME, your assessment to also come. So just the way you did your MBME for step 1, you're going to do MBMEs for step 2. They have MBME 1 to 15, but 9 to 15 are the most important one. 15 was just released very recently, maybe say 2 months or 3 months ago, because it was not available when I wrote my exams. It was just recently I heard it was released. So you also to do the UO self-assessment for step 2 to also test your readiness for the exams. So you want to be careful when you are doing your MBMEs and you are getting score of 220 and you are aiming at 250 or 260, especially if you're applying for a competitive specialty. So you know you're not yet ready and you need to continue studying and identifying your weaknesses and doing them continuously. So the important thing for your step 2 to gauge your readiness is that you have a good MBME score. So if you're scoring like 260 from your MBME, go and take your exams. At least even if you score 250 something, it's not a bad score, it's a very excellent score. So it's just based on what you want and the time you have before applying for the match. So step 3, I've not taken step 3, but what I can just say a little about it is a 2 days exam and it's usually taken only in the United States. It's not taken anywhere else. So the major resources that we're using for preparation are UWorld. There's something called CCS cases. Then you take your MBMEs to gauge your readiness and you go to take the exams. But the USMLE step 3 is not compulsory for you to do before you apply for the match, but it's an added advantage, especially for us international medical graduates. Because when you have your step 3, the hospital is like, oh, okay, this person has taken away USMLE exams out of the way, so she can concentrate on her residency, compared to a person that's not taking step 3. Because a lot of them are scared that, oh, even if you come, are you going to even pass step 3? Because step 3 is difficult. Then look at you having to face residency. You're not preparing for graduation, you apply for the match. But when you're less than 5 years, you can take the risk, because I can see you going to the US to take it is quite expensive. You need to get visa. To get visa is even difficult. The funds, accommodation, tickets, flights, and every other thing. So that's why a lot of people do not take step 3 before application. But with your step 1, step 2 OET, you can get your ECFMG certificate, and that ECFMG certificate is already good enough for you to apply for the match. So that's all I have to say about preparation for USMLE. Thank you very much for your audience, and I'll be happy to take any questions you have for me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zubeida Said Hijis. We are really happy to have you here. And I know there are many questions popping. Well, for the sake of time and orderliness, we're going to keep all the questions to the end of the session. So that's all we'll be doing. So thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation. She just gave a presentation for preparing for taking and passing the USMLE. So the second speaker will be giving us a talk about the matching process into US internal medicine residency, and how to build a competitive CV to get matched. Because if you follow our presentation, you're then going to know that it's a competitive process. So our second speaker, his citation will be read out, and he's going to give us how we can build this CV and how to prepare for matching. So I'll be calling on Awa Emmanuel to read the citation for the second speaker. So thank you very much.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, I can hear
Okay,
you.
so the citation for our second speaker, Dr. John Ogedebe. Dr. John Ogedebe is a second-year internal medicine resident at Trinity Health in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with a strong interest in hematology oncology. He earned his MBBS from Delta State University in 2019. After graduation, he served as a medical officer at Life Medical Center and General Hospital, Nasarawa. He then completed externship in the United States, including at Norman Regional Health System, in Oklahoma, and Humboldt Park Health, where he honed his skills in patient management and clinical research, following which he marched into an internal medicine residency in 2013. Dr. Ogedebe has also made significant contributions to the medical field through various research publications, focusing on topics ranging from diabetes management and endocrine disorders to emerging infectious diseases. With a standing ovation, join me as welcome our second speaker for today, Dr. John Ogedebe.
Hello everyone. Good evening. I'm audible, right? Everyone can hear me.
You're audible, sir.
Okay, great. Really nice to be here today. I want to thank the organizers of this. It's always a privilege for me to talk to medical students, especially for the reason that I was in your shoes just a few years ago. I wrote step one as a medical student. I was in 500 level at the time, and then I took step two after med school, which was basically after house job. So definitely a bit of a gap between step one and step two. But it's such a privilege to talk to you guys today, and I'm really happy to be here. Also want to thank the other speakers as well for it was a really good presentation by my esteemed first speaker. So without further ado, talking about match process and building a competitive CV. I'm gonna start from building a competitive CV because first you want to make your CV as competitive as possible, and then afterwards you prepare for the match process. I don't have a slide prepared, but feel free to ask your questions, and then I'll make sure that you guys kind of like understand the whole process. So talking about building a competitive CV, I've divided it into a few parts. The first part is the USMLE scores, and my esteemed first speaker did a beautiful job of talking about all the exams from step one to step three. And the number one thing you need towards building a competitive CV is to have good scores. Every other thing in terms of research, in terms of having US clinical experience, all these things are basically like salt and pepper just to make the soup sweet. But the real thing you need is to have good scores and to not have any attempts. By attempts, I mean you've not had any prior failed step one or step two, because that alone can jeopardize your entire process. I know a couple of people who have had prior attempts in some steps, and it's always very difficult to match afterwards, because as much as possible, programs want to have, the strongest residents who would have no problems, passing residency exams. So they basically have that mindset of, if you have struggled or had problems passing the USMLEs, then you will have problems passing residency exam and passing the boards. So very, very important to make sure that you have fantastic scores. I think the step one now is pass or fail. And since step one was made pass or fail and they removed the score aspect to it, I think the pass rate has dropped a little bit, to be frank. And this is because, people have not taking it as seriously, because you just need to pass the exam. But notwithstanding, you have to make sure that you are also very well prepared. For step two, currently, I think the mean score is somewhere around 247. So that is a very, very high mean score. So ideally, a score of 260 is great, but if not, a score of 250 and above would be just fantastic and give you the best chance you have of matching. And so I'm not going to talk much about the steps and scoring well in them. I think the first speaker has done a fantastic job with that. So other parts of building a competitive CV, let's talk about research. When you have your ERA CV, which is basically the CV that you submit to programs, you want to make sure that every part of the CV, you have something there. So there's a part of CV on work experience, there's a part of your CV on volunteer experience, there's a part on research. You want to make sure that there is no gaps in your CV. You want to make sure that there's no empty space, basically. So you have to have some research. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can be just a couple of research. And you might ask, how do I get research? How do I get publications? When I was applying a couple of years ago, I basically worked with other people who were applying as well. And then we just wrote some stuff. We wrote some, some literature reviews, some narrative reviews, and then we just had them published. And it doesn't have to be in like, very fantastic journals. You are not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but basically just anything that you can publish, just get it done and add it to your CV. So that is super, super important. Getting at least, I would say, 2 research and above would kind of plug that part of your CV and put something there. Many people have matched without research, right? So while it's not extremely important like this course, but also something that you want to have on your CV as well. Another thing is the YOG, which is your year of graduation. I think most people here in the internal medicine interest group are medical students or have just graduated, so you have a very good year of graduation. You always want to apply within 5 years of leaving medical school, because most programs have what is called a filter. So imagine a program director with 5,000 plus applications, and they can only interview 200 applicants. So these program directors have to have some filters, which is basically some way to weed out or to weed out some applicants. And they often use the year of graduation to do this. So make sure that, if you're still in med school, you are already planning when you want to take your exams. You want to take them within 5 years of leaving med school, or you might get filtered out by a good number of programs, which we don't want, right? And then we talk about USCE, US clinical experience as well. There are 2 types of US clinical experience. There is the hands-on US clinical experience, and there's rotations, virtual rotations. It's very difficult to get hands-on US clinical experience because you need a visa to go and do this rotation. And for me, I at the time I wanted to apply, I applied for a visa to go do, this, to do hands-on rotations, and also to take my step 3 at a time, and my visa was denied. So it's really, really difficult to get a visa. But notwithstanding, if you are able to do tele-rotations, go for it. It's not as great as hands-on clinical experience, but it's also something that you can put on your CV that, hey, I've had a bit of experience in understanding the medical system in the US. Just because program directors feel like applicants who have some US clinical experience would easily adapt to the system, as opposed to applicants who do not have any US clinical experience. And if you do a tele-rotation or a virtual rotation, fantastic. It's just about how you can explain during your interviews that, you have learned a lot from those virtual rotations. So just to recap parts of this building a competitive CV. We talked about scores. Very important to get great scores, as high as you can. And if you are not ready for the exams, and when I mean by not being ready, I mean, you've taken your NBMEs or you've taken your UWorld self-assessment and you are not hitting your target scores, it's better to wait and, try to do a bit more preparation and then hit those scores before you go, because the scores can either make or mar your entire applications. So don't be like, oh, I've been preparing for a long time and I'm getting frustrated with not hitting my scores, so I'm just gonna go and wing it and write it. Just still, be a little more patient and try to hit your desired scores on the practice exam. Super, super important to have a good score. So we've talked about scores, we talked about research and publications, we talked about the YOG, the year of graduation, and then also the US clinical experience. So that's it for building a competitive CV. And now to talk about the match process itself. The match process is divided into two, which is firstly the step of getting the interviews, and then the second step of actually doing the interviews. So things have become a lot easier in the past few years since 2020 with COVID and all that, because prior to 2020, applicants would literally have to be physically in the United States and they'll have to physically attend all their interviews. So that was difficult because it would be very expensive, to travel from state to state, going from hospital to hospital, doing these interviews. But now all these interviews are virtual, and you basically do the interviews from Nigeria, basically. So it just makes life a lot easier, and it also makes it easier for you to attend as many interviews as possible. So let's talk about getting the interviews. There's a statement I usually tell people, which is putting your hand up in the crowd. It's very hard to be noticed as an applicant when you apply for residency. And this is because, like I said, most programs have an average of, say, 5,000 applicants, and they are only going to interview about 200. So imagine a program director with 5, 6, 7,000 applicants interviewing only 200 to 300 applicants. It's hard to really, really, be noticed. And even when you have great scores, a lot of people have fantastic scores as well. A lot of people are scoring in the 260s, in the 270s. You have some research, beautiful. A lot of people have some research as well. So how can you put your hand out in the crowd, and how can you be noticed? How can you be able to hustle those interviews? Because to be very, very honest, like, it's hustle. Like, you are basically just hustling and trying to get all these interviews before other people basically grab them from your hands. So it's survival of the fittest. Everyone is hustling, fighting for interviews. So talking about how did you get these interviews? The first thing, which I think it's a great idea because it worked for me when I applied, is sending a lot of cold emails. And when you ask a lot of people, what is the best time to send emails? People will tell you to send emails, say at the middle of November. Just to give you some perspective, the March season usually starts at the end of September. So last week of September is when the March season starts, and that's when programs can finally see your CV. So people will say, don't send emails, wait for programs to give interviews, don't send emails until middle of November, allow October to pass. Personally, I don't agree. I started sending emails even before the March season started, especially to the program coordinators. So the programs usually have two very important people who are involved in screening applicants before the interviews: the program director and the program coordinator. The program director is a doctor, so basically an internal medicine doctor who is in charge of the residency program, while the program coordinator is, I will call the program coordinator a secretary. So that's basically the secretary of the residency program. So I started sending emails to the program coordinators even before the season started to tell them, hey, I really, really like your program. I would love to come to your program, and I hope you notice me now early. I didn't really send to the program directors at that time because program directors are very busy people. They are just doctors like everyone else, and they have their clinics to run, they have their rounds to do and all that. So I concentrated more on the program coordinators. And then when the season started, first week of September, I sent emails to everyone now, both to the program directors and the program coordinators. So you sent the emails very, very early at the beginning of the season. And I say so because by November, by 2 months into the season, they have basically already shared all their interviews. Some programs have already given out all their interviews. Most programs have given out most of their interview slots already. And by that time, almost everyone is sending emails. So no one is going to see your email. Just imagine the program director or coordinator getting 30 emails per day. You are it's going to be hard for you to be seen, versus if you send it earlier when the program directors or coordinators are only getting, say, 1-2 emails per day. So send those emails very, very early at the beginning of the March cycle, and not at the middle of the March cycle. Then we talk about networking. Networking is very, very important, and this is majorly through LinkedIn. Through LinkedIn, I know some people use Twitter as well, Instagram, but majorly through LinkedIn. So you basically, go to go and search all the programs you're applying to. For example, you are applying to Mayo Clinic, for example. So you put Mayo Clinic internal medicine residents, and then you see residents who are already in the program, and then you connect with them and you ask them questions and you try to get them involved in your process. It's not just about asking them to recommend you right off the bat, but to get them to be invested in your process. So you get them to review your CV, you get them to review your research work, and basically get them to be part of your process, so that when it's time for them to recommend you, they feel like they have a vested personal interest in your success, and then they are more willing to help you. Just as an aside, I know this is probably not very important to a lot of people now, because you are probably still in the phase before you take your exam. So this is like way later on in the process, but just a few things to have in mind, because at that point, after your exams and when you apply, they would be extremely, extremely useful. So go on, when the time comes, go on LinkedIn and talk to people, talk to residents, ask them to be invested in your process, give them your CV to review, give them your personal statement, and to tell you how extremely important this is. When I applied, I had 3 interviews, which I got just from people I met on LinkedIn. And these are people that I still talk to today. These are people who I built a personal relationship with them. And when it was time to apply, they were pretty much the ones saying, bring your CV, I'm going to recommend you my program. So that's just to say how important this can be for you. So networking is so important at that phase of application in your process. We've talked about sending the cold emails. We've talked about networking. Pretty much the last part, which is the interview proper. So you've done all your great work. You've had a fantastic CV. You've done networking. You've got some people to advocate for you to programs. You've sent your emails. Now you've gotten the interviews. This is by far the most important stage in your entire process. It's not even close. This is the most important process. Once you get that interview, everyone is on the same level. At that point, it doesn't matter if your score is 210 or your score is 270. All you have to do is to make a great impression, and you are going to match and you are going to do well. So what most people do is basically practice for months even before the interview season starts. During my time, I had a few friends who were also applying for the match, and we started to practice from July. We started to practice from July, and the interview basically started in September, October, from October. So we started to practice in July, and then we practiced for many, many months. And by the time these interviews came around the corner, we were all very, very, solid. We had great interview skills. We were all ready to shine and to make good impressions. And at the end of the day, basically all of us matched in our first choice program, and we are still all very, very close even till this day. We are all in different residency programs, but our interview match prep group is still alive to date, and we still talk almost on a daily basis. So super, super important. Don't basically, in quotes, use your hand to spoil what you've worked for a very long time. So when you get to that interview stage, you have to make a very good impression. And when I say very good impression, I don't mean that you are moving stuff, because nobody is asking you stuff. In fact, if any program is asking you, how do you manage this or how do you manage that, it's even a red flag. You understand? It's a red flag. The program will just use you and work, and they often times are more toxic programs. But a lot of the times, these programs just want to see how you are as a human being. They just want to know that you are able to interact with colleagues and that you are going to be a fun person to work with. It also depends on what you like. During my interviews, most of the things that I was talking about was football. It was during the World Cup period, so we're just talking about World Cup and matches and all that. So no one is really going to ask you medical questions. Very few programs will ask medical questions, but most will not. They're just going to ask you about, your parents, about your hobbies, about your experiences in Nigeria and stuff like that. They are all usually very light-hearted interviews. So this is pretty much the end of my short presentation. I'm just gonna recap what we've discussed today. We've talked about building a competitive CV. We've talked about scores, making sure that you go take the exams when you are ready. We've talked about research. Basically, you get a couple of other people who are also applying for the match, and you write You just write a literature review and then you submit and get published. It really doesn't matter the journal. Everything is fair game at this point. We've talked about the year of graduation, making sure that you write your exams and you apply within 5 years of leaving med school, and also US clinical experiences. We've talked about hands-on, and if you're unable to go to the US to write your exams, then do tele-rotations. Tele-rotations can be pretty expensive, especially now that the exchange rate is getting worse every day. So even if you are unable to do it, then it's not the most important thing. I think there's a pretty cheap tele-rotation which was going around last year and which I did a couple years ago, which was about 250 the dollars. So, but apart from that, many of them can be even more expensive. They can be up to 1,000 and so on. So if you're unable to do it, just let it go. Not the most important thing. We also talked about the match process, getting the interviews by putting up your hand in the crowd, by sending these emails really, really early and not late in the cycle. Send them as early as August, September. Network a lot, go on LinkedIn, have a LinkedIn account when you're about applying, and talk to as many residents as you can and get them to be involved in your process and get them to recommend you. And also talked about building a competitive CV and also having a great interview. You can literally have only one interview and match from that. People do it all the time, and you can have 15 interviews and not match. You know, people go either way, and it all just depends on how well you are prepared. And a lot of the time, when you've really, really prepared for a long time, when you've really put in the work, you go there and you give a fantastic interview performance. They like you and they basically tell you there and then, or they send you emails that, you know, they would really love you to come to their program, and then you are home and dry. And then March the next year, you basically get that life-changing email that you have matched, and you know, and that's pretty much it. So once again, I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to talk to you guys. It's a privilege for me, you know, because I always say how I was, you know, in your shoes just a few years ago, you know, writing the USMLEs, finishing from my med school, DELSU in 2019, and navigating the whole process. You know, you might ask yourself, is it worth it? And a lot of the time, it gets very difficult that you wonder, why didn't I take PLAB? You know, why didn't I go the UK route? That was definitely something I asked myself over 1,000 times. I always ask myself, literally, who sent me message? Who sent me to basically go down this route? When my friends who had written PLAB had gone to the UK a long time ago, and I was still in Nigeria, you know, hustling, trying to get my CV together and trying to apply. But I can tell you for a fact that 100% it is worth it. If you've made up your mind that you want to do USMLE, despite, you know, the financial constraints and despite how much you are going to stress yourself, know for sure that when you get to that point, when you get that email and when you move over to the US and you start a residency, there is nothing like it. Like, there's literally nothing. It's the best feeling in the world. It's the best place to be for your medical growth and future, and it's really, really is amazing. So just to encourage you guys to keep on, you know, doing what you're doing, keep on working hard, and I really do hope and pray that, you know, everyone here is going to achieve their dreams. So thank you once again for the opportunity, guys.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. John Ogedegbe. Please, you both should put your hands up. You both should like send good comments. You should comment, give your reactions. Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, sir. So all the questions, as I said earlier, are going to be answered at the end of this session. So we have just one last speaker. And I think from the last session, we all know that we have to put our hands up in the crowd. I'm going to be doing that, and I hope you'll be doing that as well. So our last speaker, we're calling our last speaker, he has a quite unique route. He's going to tell us his own personal experience from writing the USMLE to matching. And he also did something that was quite unique. He actually did a master's, and he actually had a research pathway on his own. As you have heard from our second speaker and even from the first speaker, in building your competitive CV, in building your competitive CV, it is very important to
I don't take you serious.
your competitive CV is very important to being a competitive CV is very important for us to involve in research, and so he's going to be telling us more about his research pathway. He's going to be giving us a bit about his own experience. So I'm going to call on Victor Odia to read the citation of the third speaker. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? Hello, good evening. Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone for staying up to this time. So I'm very thrilled to read the citation of this next speaker. He's a very dynamic doctor. So our next speaker, Dr. Oladayo Oyebandi, is a first-year internal medicine resident at University Hospital Cleveland Medical Center, Ohio. Dr. Oladayo earned his medical degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, Nigeria in 2014 and completed a master's in pharmacology and toxicology from Wright State University, Dayton, Ohio in 2020. He later proceeded on a postdoctoral research in infectious disease, where he was actively involved in multiple NIH and CDC-funded projects, focusing on the immunology and epidemiology of COVID-19 and its vaccines among nursing home residents and healthcare workers. He has one book chapter and several peer-reviewed publications to his name. He also serves as a peer reviewer for several top-tier journals. At the Infectious Disease Week in 2023, he won the Yoshikawa High Abstract Award for the Best Abstract Submission in Geriatric category. He's a passionate and dedicated medical professional committed to holistic patient care and clinical research. Beyond his professional pursuits, Dr. Oladayo enjoys watching and playing soccer, listening to music, as well as exploring his creative side through graphics design. His multifaceted interests contribute to his well-rounded and dynamic personality. Please join us as we learn from this inspiring doctor whose journey embodies excellence, dedication, and commitment. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Odia, for the introduction. I want to say a very big thank you to the organizers of the program. Special shout out to Dr. Yoha. He's been the one linking up with me on LinkedIn, and he's been very wonderful. So thank you once again for putting this platform together. And I want to also send a big shout out to the previous speakers, Dr. Idris Said and Dr. Ugedegbe. I hope I got it right. I'm trying not to use my Yoruba mouth and Yoruba mind to pronounce that name. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. You've touched on things that I would want to talk about. So that's really, you've really helped me. And I hope I'll be able to stay within 15 to 15 minutes so that I help the organizers keep this meeting within 2 hours as we promised. So I'll be sharing my slide now. Can you all see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Please let me know if you can see my slide. Okay, great. Okay. Okay, so basically, I'm a first-year internal medicine resident at University Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio, and I've been asked to talk about my journey to residency. So I'll be getting a bit very personal here about my experiences and also just share some insights and lessons I learned along the way to complement what the other speakers have talked about. So this is the outline I'll be going through. We'll be starting with an introduction, then talk about the match process for me and the lessons learned,
which will be more important, and also final thoughts. Just to recap my journey so far, I graduated 2014 from Obafemi Awolowo University. I proceeded on internship, what we call housemanship, house job. Did that. I graduated November 2014, so like 3 months later, I started house job 2015, finished 2016 at Exuit, then proceeded on NYC, served in Delta State from 2016 to 2017. Then I did some of my professors used to call Okokobioko, private practice here and there between Ado and landed at DIF Hospital in Abuja 2017 to 2018. Before I left for my master's program in pharmacology, I'll be talking a bit more about why pharmacology precisely later on. It's a 2-year program, laboratory based, from 2018 to 2020. Then immediately after graduation, like I think few months after, I got this postdoctoral research position at Case Western Reserve University, where I worked on COVID from 2020 to 2024, where I matched, and now a resident, hoping to complete that 2027. So why did I decide to transition to the US? Dr. Idris Said talked about why the US is a choice destination for many folks, and one of the things she mentioned was research. Of course, the United States is a worldwide leader when it comes to medical research. And what sparked my interest in research, then when we were in school, I noticed for me, there were certain anti-malarials that would work for me, but then my mom would take those anti-malarials and at the same time, it will not work for her until if she doesn't take Fancida for whatever reason, she will not be fine. But for me, Fancida does not work for me. Give me the regular Lonart, and I'll be fine. So that sparked my interest. Why would the same medication have different effects on two different human beings? And of course, from pharmacology, we know about pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. And from the pharmacodynamic standpoint, we know that our bodies differ, how our body relates with medications differ. So this sparked up my interest. I wanted to see why two individuals will respond differently to the same medication. I wanted to delve more into that. So that sparked up my interest. So I wanted to learn more about pharmacology. So I already had it in mind. I was going to come to the US for a master's program to learn more about research. And also the advanced training, Dr. Idris Said talked about this as well. The residency program here is well structured. And at the same time too, you have the opportunity to learn from a lot of the best brains that you can think of. So I wanted to come because of those were the two primary reasons why I wanted to come. There were other reasons, of course. You talk about the fact that the diversity and a lot of other stuff, but for me, these were the two primary reasons why I chose to come for a master's. So did the master's play any role? What were the benefits of the master's for me? So it gave me a good introduction into the American system, working with Americans. I tell you, it's a bit different from what we're used to. They are very, very systematic in their thinking and the way they do things. So my master's gave me that good introduction. I worked with a a man who doubles as a professor of dermatology and also a professor of pharmacology as well. So from there, and occasionally I would go to the clinic with him, but majorly just learning more about the United States was one thing that the master's did for me. Then it helped develop my research skills. The pharmacology here, although I wanted clinical pharmacology, but the biomedical science graduate program in the United States is less clinical and more molecular, more basic. So I wanted clinical pharmacology. I thought that was what I was coming for, but then it was more of a basic pharmacology. Most of the clinical stuff we did was in the first semester. The subsequent semesters was about research. I did a research-based master's. I worked on a particular therapy that has been approved for skin cancer care and all that. So that helped me to develop my laboratory research skills, interpreting results, how to generate even results, and even putting it together for presentations, abstracts, and also that helped me in that regard. And also I was able to network as well a bit. Like I said, my professor is also a physician. So I was able to have that network going on, and through him, I was open to other networks as well, network of physicians. And at the same time, too, being in the US, it was just easy. Hey, this is a Nigerian resident. They are doing emergency medicine, but they have a friend who is doing internal medicine somewhere. So I was able to get that network from the masters that I did. And also presentation abilities. Like I said, it helped me to build my presentation. I went for different meetings, different seminars, different conferences as well, where I was able to learn how to present research and how to present medical information in a manner that would be appealing to the audience. Then after my master's, I proceeded on a postdoctoral research in infectious disease, where I was working on COVID-19 vaccines, majorly among nursing home residents. Basically, what we did was we'll go around, take their blood sample, come back to the lab to do antibody studies. And it was really a fulfilling time for me. It gave me a new perspective to medicine. It was at that time that I knew that I could literally ask a question clinically, and of course have the ability to answer those questions in the laboratory or through research. Not necessarily laboratory, you can also do clinical research, database research, and answer questions that way. So it gave me a new perspective to medicine, being able to, I call research the back end of medicine, being able to interact with the medical field from the back end perspective really broadened my perspective about how medicine is to be practiced. And from there, I got to know what I want to do in the future, knowing fully well that I could ask questions at the bedside, then go to the bench, answer those questions, or even generate questions on the bench, and come to the bedside to see if those things are applicable, and vice versa. So, and also networking opportunities. I even had more networking opportunities here. I worked with an infectious disease physician. I was able to shadow him in the clinic at some point, and also through him too, like my supervisor during my master's, I was open to a network of other physicians. A whole lot of them. I worked at the School of Medicine, so there were a lot of physicians doing research at that time that I was exposed to and I got to meet as well. And then publications and presentations, most of my publications, 95% of them, I would say, came from this experience. It was a 4-year experience, and we were always, my boss happened to be someone who really wanted a lot, who likes publishing. So that really worked well for me. It challenged me, and literally sometimes we need to get a paper ready within a week, and we try as much as possible to meet such deadlines. So this experience really helped me to get publications, learn the art of writing manuscripts, even learn the art of peer review at the same time, and also learn about the politics of managing publication. I tell you, these journals, there's a bit of politics too as to it, and who reviews your paper and all those or whatnot. So, and also presentations too, like you heard earlier on, I went for a conference, went for multiple actually, presented posters, even got oral presentations. I learned the art of presentation also during this time. And more importantly, there's this pathway in the United States that is called the National Interest Waiver. The National Interest Waiver is just a means by which international foreigners now can get permanent residency, what we call green card in the United States. What that does what that entails is you submit a petition telling the United States that, hey, I'm an accomplished expert in my field. I have done this, evidenced by my publications, my participation in this group, and put together the petition to let them know that you are a benefit to the United States. That is what it means, national interest, that you have national interest. And of course, I was able to do that, and I was able to get my permanent residency through that means. And without the publications, it may have been difficult for me to get it, but I must say that a lot of people now, just by virtue of the MD, people even apply from Nigeria now, they get it, but that's not the focus of this talk. But this experience helped me, put me at a vantage position to be able to get a good petition, submit a good petition. Then to my residency match experience, I will try not to repeat much of what Dr. Gedebe has said. I applied twice. I did it the first time. That was 2022, 2023 cycle. I only had steps 1 and 2 at that time, and about 6 publications. I had 1 month of US clinical, which I did with my boss. Then I got only 1 interview and went unmatched. Then going into the second cycle, that's 2023, 2024 now, I did step 3. I got a green card through the NIW process. Of course, I had more publications at that time. And of course, I knew coming from the first cycle to the second cycle that one major thing that was deficient on my application was US clinical experience. So I went out of my way to get US clinical experience, talk to different people, the networks that I've made before, telling them that I wanted to shadow them in clinic. I wanted to do a rotation with them. So I had I think about 8 months or thereabouts going into the second cycle. But more importantly, I would say going into the second cycle, what really worked well for me was intentional networking and better understanding of the process. I tell you, I applied to less programs in my second cycle, in my second attempt, but I ended up getting 8 interviews. That's because I understood the process well, how the process worked, and I was intentional about my networking. I don't know if Dr. Gidebe would remember, it was one of the many folks I reached out to on LinkedIn, and it was really kind enough, one of the few kind ones who responded to me on LinkedIn at that time. He gave me a certain step to take. I took the step and I got that interview. I'm sure he doesn't remember, but of course I still remember him so well. So you have to be intentional about your networking. That was one thing that I felt worked well for me going into the second cycle, and much more I understood the process more. Like I said, I won't want to repeat all Dr. Gidebe has said. He has done good justice to that, and I will just leave it at that. Then, so the main stuff I want to share with you now, what were the lessons that I learned? What were the things I could have done better? What were the things that I did that I feel like, okay, is what if I have to go over again, I will do those things over and over again. One thing is you need to start early. I did not start early. I came to the US 2018. I thought my plan, of course, the plan was to write the USMLE exams during my master's. But like many of you would have seen, the USMLE is a jealous exam. If you are not, you need to be mentally prepared for it to start the journey. At that time, I had issues with funding from my program. So it was difficult when you are still thinking, how do I get my tuition paid? How do I even pay my rent and all that, and doing UWorld? So whatever I bought at that time to start preparation was just a waste, because after 2-3 months in, I found out that it was always divided attention and I won't get the best out of myself going on this journey at this time. So I had to stop. So majorly, but I would just want to tell you, if you are still in medical school right now, you are doing house job, you are NYC, post-NYC, please start early. Dr. Gedebe talked about year of graduation. Once you cross that 5 years post-graduation, you are regarded to as an old graduate. That thing, I don't want to call it a curse. A friend of mine would call it we are just doctors with high mileage. But then there's a filter that they use, and one of the first filters that many programs use is the year of graduation filter. So what they do is that for those applying this year, and they use the year you'll be starting residency. So for those applying in the current cycle now, it's 2025. So anybody who graduated prior to 2020 is regarded as an old graduate. Many of them will put in that filter. So if your year of graduation is before 2020, they will not even see your application. That is where, because even if you have 260s and 270s, they may not get to see the application just because you are over that 5-year mark. So I need you to start early as possible. Start with your exams. Step 1 takes months to get ready for. Start early and make sure that every minute counts the moment you decide that you want to pursue this journey. Then under that, do you really need a master's? I have had that question a couple of times. Absolutely, I would say NO, capital letter NO. You don't need a master's degree to match into residency. And I think Dr. Ogedegbe talked about that too. You don't need a master's to match, but if you find yourself on the master's pathway, those are some of the benefits that you get from it, like I've highlighted earlier on, but you don't necessarily need a master's. And the cons of pursuing a master's is You may think you will be able to write your exams during the master's program. Many of us had that plan. In fact, I would say 99% of people coming for a master's in the United States, be it MPH or a biomedical science master's, they have the plans to complete the exams during their program. But the reality of it is that only maybe 10 to 20% end up writing at least one, even one, during that 2-year period. And you just find out that that's 2 more years added to your year of graduation. So if you came in maybe at 3 years, by the time you are finishing masters, then you're already an old graduate. So those are some of the things you need to consider before you decide if you want to come for a master's. Then the other thing I would say is a lot of people come for a master's in public health, but there are different concentrations under public health, and each program would want you to define the concentration you want. There are some concentrations that are not listed as STEM. What difference? The difference that makes is after your graduation as a foreigner in the United States, you get a 1-year period OPT, optical practical training now, where you are able to practice where you're able to work for 1 year after your master's degree. Now, if you are now in a STEM designated course, you get 2 more years, which makes a total of 3 years, which was what I did. You get a total of 3 years to work after your master's. Before then, you are officially out of status. You need a visa at that point in time to keep yourself in the United States. So there are certain concentrations under public health that are not listed as STEM. So if you are considering MPH, please make sure that whatever concentration you are thinking about is listed as a designated STEM or not, so that you know what you are getting into. So like I said, you don't really need a master's, but if you end up doing a master's, there are benefits that comes with it. Then research versus US clinical experience. Dr. Ogedebe talked about the fact that research is good and all that, but it's not everything that will guarantee your match. And I usually say, knock on wood, if at gunpoint you have to choose one between research and OSCE, let's say you have limited resources and that the resources available onto you can only be dedicated to one, either research or US clinical experience, I will beg you to take US clinical experience. Not downplaying research in any way, and I will explain more shortly. Not downplaying research in any way, but I tell you, a US clinical experience will do you a lot of good if it comes to absolutely choosing between the two. Having the two is best, but if you have to choose one, upon all that you're getting, please get US clinical experience. And I have a chart. I hope I have the time to show it. I want to show the average number of research of those who matched in the last cycle and all that. Then the second thing I want to say is be intentional. You have to be intentional about this process. It is not like the way we do things where you know that you can easily submit your application and you get in. You are competing with a lot of people from all over the world. And right now, due to the virtual interviews now, programs are getting thousands of applications. You can imagine a program that has only 20 slots. They get up to like 5,000 applications. By the time they use the filters and all that, they still come down to like maybe 2,000 or 2,500 applications to review. And how do you stand out? You know, you've heard much about that, and hopefully there will be other channels where more can be said on that. But you have to be intentional about this process. You have to, starting from your USMLE. USMLE will really wipe your butt. Yeah, especially step 1. The preparation is really, really challenging. But then you have to be intentional. You have to keep yourself going. One of the things that helps is mentorship. Mentorship, you need guidance. Dr. Idris Said mentioned it the other time about preparing for the USMLE. That is not an exam you prepare for alone. You need people around you. Exactly. That is for the whole process. I would say that it applies to the whole process. You need mentorship. You need someone to guide you. Like I said, one of the things that made the difference between the first time I applied and the second time I applied was the information at my disposal going into the second cycle. And I got that through mentorship, connecting with a lot of people. Hey, how do you do it? How do you do this? How do you do that? Look at my application. Please talk to me. What do I need to do? What are the steps I need to be taking? So you need that mentorship, and also leverage available platforms. I want to say thank you for this internal medicine group, interest group. It was not something we had during years back, but there are a lot of platforms, other platforms coming up now. There's Kanji, which has been for a couple of years, and there's another group as well, which I belong to, Joey's IMG to IMG platform. You know, these platforms now are informations, they share informations, you can network with people there, you can get advices, get like steps to take, ask questions, and people will put you through. Then the last thing, network. Now, like I said, out of 2,500 applications, they want to interview maybe 150 or maybe 200. Usually programs try to interview 10 candidates for each slot that they have. So if a program has 20 slots, then they try to interview about 200 to be able to fill up the 20 slots. So how do you end up getting one of the 200 interview slots out of 2,500 applications? It's by networking. And of course, if you cross that year of graduation gap and your application has been filtered out, one of the ways you can get them to see your application is by networking. Get someone in the program to recommend you, and then they will now pull your application out from the trash can or recycle bin, wherever it is that they kept it, and then they were able to look at it. Oh, he had a 260. Oh, he had many publications. That is when they will see it, you know. So network all the way. And there is really we can do a whole session on how to network. Dr. Ogedebe gave you an insight into it already. Leverage LinkedIn, Twitter. LinkedIn for me was the best. And I got some other connections too on Twitter as well. And then leverage on your relatives and friends that are here in the United States already. I was literally calling people, even one of my family friend in Arizona. Hey, talk to your primary care physician. Does he have any link to any program around the area and all that? Can he recommend me? Or even if he wants me to travel down for an observership, that is how far you can go when it comes to networking. Don't restrict yourself. And on a final note, I just want to share 3 thoughts with you. First is that nothing guarantees absolute failure or success on this journey. Yeah, we've talked about the importance of getting high scores, but a lot of people with 250s and 260s end up not matching, which shows that scores are not the only thing that will guarantee you success on this journey. And on the flip side of it too, nothing guarantees absolute failure. If you have an attempt, people match with attempts. If you have a low score, people match with low scores. You don't have any research publication, people match with no research publication. So nothing guarantees absolute failure or absolute success on this journey. So you just have to look at your story, look at what you have, look for the best way to spin it around. Like I said, I started residency this year, 10 years post-graduation and all that, and I don't see that I don't spin it as a red flag. I don't let them know that, yeah, I graduated a long time ago. No, I spin it about my experiences, what I've done that has prepared me for residency, all the private practice in Nigeria, my research experience, how they have contributed into making me a stellar candidate for residency. Those are the things that you should be looking into. So no matter the red flag you have, please just know that nothing guarantees absolute failure on this journey. As long as you're on the journey, please do your best to make sure you give it all it takes. And then know that paths differ. You need to own your journey. For me, that's my journey, coming from Nigeria, doing masters, doing research and all that. A lot of people match from Nigeria directly these days. And it was interesting to hear Dr. Ogedebe talked about the fact that he did step 1 while he was still a medical student. Wow. I mean, for me, it's just like back then, what were we even doing in medical? I cannot even remember. But anyway, paths differ. Many people don't have to go through the long process. A lot of people match immediately. They are graduating from Nigeria immediately after house job from Nigeria. And you find a lot of people here too that they've been here for years. So they matched after maybe like 15 years. So our paths differ. Don't look at someone who looks seemingly ahead of you or seemingly behind you and think that, well, you are doing well or you are doing worse. Please own your journey. Know that you're on this journey to succeed and just keep forging forward. Network as much as possible. Ask questions from mentors and peers and just make sure that you are doing well on your own journey for yourself. And lastly, I want to say it's a game, honestly. It's a game. By the time we even begin to talk about the interview, beyond the interview, not even ranking after the interview, this thing is a game. The programs, they play the game. Applicants to play the game. The ones who learn the rules of the game, end up actually being the successful one. So learn the rules of the game, leverage the available platforms, get as many information as you can get, and play it accordingly. On that note, I would want to say thank you so much. I appreciate you for listening. And those are my contacts. If you have any questions beyond now and all that, I'll be happy to guide you as much as I can and also answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Dr. Oladayo Oyabanji. That we are so much appreciative of everything you have said to us. Thank you so much. I've learned something that it is a game, and while we're playing the game, we should put our hands up in the crowd. And no matter what, we should own our journey. So thank you so much. And as you said, concerning the research and everything, one of the goals of the IMGN is actually to introduce students to research and also allow them get publications. And this is the goal of our research unit, and we'll be able to produce our first paper in a very few months. And we're looking to produce more coming next year. We're going to be having research training and mentorship programs. And we're going to be interested persons that want to be involved in research. We're going to be sharing them. I'm going to be engaging in different programs, ranging from cross-sectional case report down to meta-analysis and systematic review. So that's one of our plans. So thank you very much for every insight you have shared to us. And so now for the question aspect, we're going to be asking some questions right now. And I will try to use my discretion because some questions are actually similar and alike. And I'm going to be taking question by question. And I would like if the speakers can, I'm going to be directing some questions to some speakers. And I would love if the speakers could actually give a brief response and informative as much as possible because we'll be trying to end the session maybe before 7:30 or so. So thank you. And for some questions like if we can have access to the slide, yes, we'll try our possible best to get the slide and we're going to share the slide to the WhatsApp group chat. Then, so for Dr. Idris, Saidu, please, we would like you to give us a breakdown of the USMLE residency pathway, the cost breakdown. I think this question is going to be very particular to you because I think you are the last, among the three speakers, you are the most recent that have just taken the exam. So I think you should have, if you could have a brief of the cost breakdown of the USMLE pathway. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that question. So it varies for everybody depending on maybe different factors. So the first thing is for you to get the registration. There's an initial registration you do that you get your USMLE ID number and some other things. So that one is like $160. So then your registration for the exams is for step 1 is around $1,195. So then your transport to Ghana, feeding, and hotel, those ones it varies just depending on the other factors, transport. Then step 2 also you pay $1,195 too, as well as your accommodation and whatever you need for you to take the exams. Then for you to prepare for the exams, each one you need to buy the UWorld online material. So that's for some people, they don't buy, they use like the offline because it's quite expensive. For you to get a 6-month subscription for UWorld, that should be around $500. I think it's $455 thereabout for 6-month subscription. So some people can buy a year because a year is like 500 plus. So after they finish using it for 6 months, they now sell it maybe around $300. So you see, like it's just a way for you to save costs. That was what I actually did during my step 2. So I actually bought for someone who did a 1 year subscription and he sold it for me at a cheaper rate. So that's another way you can save costs. Then if you want to take step 3, fine. Step 3 is $1,000, but you need to take it in the US. So you calculate your ticket and other things, but it's not compulsory. So after your USMLE step 1, step 2, then you pay for OET. OET is around $455 to $500. So OET now is no longer taking Nigeria. Ghana is the closest place. So for me, what I did to save costs instead of going back was that after my step 2, I waited for like a week plus. Then I now took my OET before coming back to Nigeria. So that's another way you can save costs. So for you now, maybe if somebody go for step 1, you can even do that one out so that one is already out of the way. After your step 1, you just do your OET and you know that, oh, the only thing that's left for you now is your step 2. So after you do your OET step 1, step 2, you want to get your ECFMG certificate because that's what you're going to use to apply for your match. So the ECFM certificate costs about $975. So when you get your certificate, you need it. You can get your certificates before the match or during the match process. But for my own advice, I prefer you get it before as much as possible. That's before September ending. Because some programs only want people that are ECFM certified for them to give you an interview. Then the application cost for the residency program. So for the first 30 programs you're going to apply, you pay $11 per program. So the first $30 and 30 programs cost $330. So if you are applying more than 30 programs, like for example, you want to apply 50, the remaining 20 programs will be calculated as $30 per one program. So the more programs you are applying, the more it's expensive per program. So if, for example, now you want to apply maybe internal medicine and family medicine together, you can save costs by applying 30 internal medicine at $330, 30 family medicine as another $330. So you are applying to like 60 programs, but in a cheaper, at a cheaper rate. So, but you just need to do more work by doing like 2 applications in terms of getting letter of recommendations from family medicine doctors, internal medicine, and it's just a bit stressful when you're applying to multiple specialties. So after that, then you pay for NRMP. There's something they call NRMP for matching. That's $70. Then, okay, I forgot something again. For your ERAS application, you need an ERAS token. That's about $160 that you use to fill in your CV and everything. So then when you match, you're good to go. From there, you know what next, flights and other things. So that's just a rough estimate of, I don't know if I forgot anything, but I think that should like give a mental picture of what the financial implication is.
Thank you so much for the cost breakdown. I think everyone was just saying dollars. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Then another question for Mr. Idris. I want to try if I can take the questions by speakers so you can just go straight. So for the second speaker, he said, is there specific time of the year you take your step 1 and 2? Are there specific time? Is it May? Is it June? Or you can actually, is there any way around that? Yeah, for now, that's a question for you, Ms. Idris, Dr. Idris. Thank you. Hello. Hello, Ms. Dr. Idris. I think there's.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know the question was for me.
Okay, yes, I said it's for you. Did you hear the question or should I recap it?
No, I heard that you're asking what time of the year for the exams, right?
Yes, if there are specific time of the year for the exam.
Okay, so you can take it all year round, just depending on whenever you are ready. You just check for the proprietary center for a date. Every month they take step 1, step 2.
Okay, thank you so much. Now to the second speaker, please, some are asking, what was the content of your email to the program directors? Is July too early to send emails to the program directors? How will you know these program directors? Does distinctions in medical school matter in the build-up of your CV? how did you secure your externship? So I think we should start with those questions. Thank you.
Sounds
And also,
good.
do you need recommendations from your teachers to get interviews? So thank you.
Yes. So I think that's about 5 questions. I will try to answer them sequentially. So if I forget anyone, please just remind me. So in terms of recommendations, you need about 4 recommendations. It's about 4 which you will need, and it can all be from Nigeria. It can all be from your med school, but it's usually preferred if you can have some from the US as well. And it's usually the major reason why people do US clinical experience, either hands-on or virtual, because anytime you do these clinical experiences, you get recommendation letters from them as well. So some programs will want 4, some programs will want 3, but ideally you should just have about 4 of this, and it can be 4 from Nigeria, 4 from the US, 2 from Nigeria, 2 from the US, and it doesn't really matter as long as all of them are complete. Then the other question in terms of what was the content of my email and the timing, it's okay to send them as early as July. I think I sent a couple from July, August, but I mostly sent at that time to the program coordinator and not to the program director. Simply because the PD, the program directors, are very busy, running their clinic and doing their medical work and stuff. So the program coordinators are the ones who are more likely to respond and who are more likely to see your emails. So ideally, you can send to the program coordinators by July, August. And then it's not just sending them an email and saying, I want to apply to your program. You can also kind of like ask them questions. For example, I would email the program coordinators and I would ask them if they would recommend me signaling the program, or if the program takes signaling seriously. Talking about signaling and all is probably is a story for another day. But then I would get a couple of replies from the program coordinators saying, yes, the program encourage signaling. And I remember getting a couple of interviews from such emails at the time as well. I can't remember the other question. Please, can you just remind me what the other one was? I think it was about 4 or 5 questions.
Okay, yeah, one of the questions was if it's important, if distinctions are important, distinctions in medical school, does it matter when you are building up your
right
CV? Yeah, I think that's the last question.
It's important. If you don't have it, it's not something that is going to put your CV down or make you a bad candidate. But if you have it, it absolutely does help. In your ERA CV, which is the CV that the programs will see, you also have a part for awards. So in that part for awards, you put, your distinctions in med school, your best graduating student, and basically all the awards you got in med school. So it also helps to make your CV even better. And I at the time I applied, I remember 1 or 2 programs who kind of liked it. So it's not something that if you don't have it, it's going to make your CV a bad CV or make you not get interviews, but it's something which can open a door for you.
Thank you so much very much, sir. Thank you so much. We really appreciate.
There's one last question which I haven't answered. If you can remind me.
I think you have touched everything. Okay, how did you secure your externship?
Okay. So the externships, the one I did were the virtual rotations. And at the time I was in like multiple USMLE groups on WhatsApp. So you basically just see them flying around. People will ask on these groups, has anybody been able to get any tele-rotation? And somebody will reply, this is one tele-rotation I got or the other. So I still remember one that I did at the time, which was the cheapest. It was $250, and most tele rotations right now and even then were $750, $1,000. So getting a tele rotation of $250 was pretty cheap then. And I told a lot of people who also used it last year. So I can send my email in the comments, and if anyone wants, I can send them an email on it, or I can send it to the organizers to share to people who will need it. I'll be very happy to do that also.
Thank you so much, sir. Also, some speakers also saw some questions on the chat box concerning the materials for USMLE, like there's some groups to join and everything. So we'll be getting all these details. We are going to be getting them from our speakers, and we're going to make sure we find a way it gets out. We're going to put it on our YouTube, or we'll put it on our WhatsApp group, so you can know some USMLE groups to join and follow up on. So thank you very much. So, sir, for the third speaker, sir. So for the third speaker, some are asking, okay, what were the networking platforms, and are there ways for medical students to start the networking early? How can we find USC and research opportunities as students? Also, if you can give a brief about the funding for your master's program. And lastly, the matching process, is it practice age dependent? Is the residency pay actually uniform across all establishments? If you can just give a brief on the range of the pay, I think that's what the person is asking. So thank you very much.
I think I counted like maybe 3 or 4, but yeah, I will need your help so that I don't miss out on anyone. So the first one talking about the first one was about networking platforms, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So like I said, both online and offline platforms. For me, going into the second circle, because I tell you, it's a devastating experience when you go through a cycle and you got only one interview, and it's even more devastating if you don't get any at all. It's not like, did I make any mistake while filling my stuff and all that? So going into the next cycle, I knew I needed to network, so I went all out. I spoke with people. I think that's the first thing you need to ask questions. Hey, how do I network? How do I connect with people? People have different ideas. And I had someone that I call a networking mentor, and this person graduated a year before me, matched, he's now in PGY2, got like 20 or a little over 20 interviews the third time he applied, and he told me that networking was what made the difference. So I made him my networking mentor, and he was someone that I got a lot of information from. So the platforms that are available, LinkedIn, you cannot exhaust LinkedIn. There are hundreds and hundreds of people in residency, Nigerians in residency right now. At some point, I even extended my network outside of Nigerians. If you're an African, trained in Africa, then I want to talk to you, you know. And then at some point, I think for some programs, I went a little bit outside of Africans. If you're an IMG, then I want to talk to you. Maybe IMG for Pakistan. But then that was low yield because those ones still have a lot of people with them, and they will always, as like everyone else, they will always want to favor those above any other stranger. So LinkedIn was one. Just reach out to people, just tell them this is my interest and everything like that. One of the ways you can do it is to ask for their guidance, mentorship, tips, and all that. And then from there, you can send them your application to review for you. Then they will have comments, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, and all that. Then from there, you can progress to asking them to recommend you in their programs that you're applying. So LinkedIn was one. Twitter was one. Twitter was a little low yield for me, but at least I got a few hits too from Twitter. Then those were even Facebook. Yes, I used Facebook. Yeah, there's a group on Facebook for USMLE. Once you post, I look at your profile and I see that you are in a program, I talk to you and all that. That was low yield for me too. Of all these 3 online platforms, LinkedIn was the highest yield for me. And that highest yield was more like getting like 10 responses out of 100 messages. So don't be discouraged. It is like that. You only need one program to say yes to you. And with every message you send out there, with every response you get, it increases your chances of getting an extra interview, increases your chances of getting that one program that will say yes to you. So just keep at it. Then offline, friends and families, I was just calling, telling people, hey, I want to apply. I need to talk to people. I need to do this. I need you to help me talk to people and all that. So offline, I did that, talking to a lot of people. So yeah, those were the platforms that I used. Then I remember this question too on funding for my master's. Yeah, it was a bit difficult. I did not get professor funded my second year through his grant. And yeah, so the first year was a bit rough, but then the second year was less rough. To get the funding, majorly, I would say just funding mostly comes in form of assistantships, teaching assistantship and research assistantships. So you want to look for programs, schools that are generous with assistantships. There are a lot of information on that too. A lot of people have gone through that process and even in that process right now in the United States, and they will always be of help. There are for MPH, for instance, a lot of people get assistantship, like get funding right from the beginning to the end. They get tuition waived off and they get some stipends too monthly. So you want to do your research, look out for programs like that. So that's how you get your funding. You get it from the schools and from the research grant you're working with. So, and then I remember the question about compensation too, if it's the same across board for residency. No, it's not, because different states, the United States is more like a federation of 50 independent states coming together, each state with different living, cost of living and all that. So the residency salaries to kind of like adjust to that slightly. I would say there aren't significant differences between them, but then it kind of like varies from state to state. And within the same state too, from programs to program, there are slight variation. But for most parts, all across board, I would say for internal medicine, you are somewhere between 50,000 and 70,000. Even for the 70,000 will probably early 70,000 now. That's per annum now, not per month. Yeah, will mostly be for those in California, New York, and all those expensive states. But for most part, you see people between 50 and 65, But this information is readily available on each program's website. So you always get the compensation there. Yeah, they just pay you enough to get by residency. It is when you become an attending after residency, that's where the meat is. So, and that's what everyone is looking forward to. I believe those are the ones I remember. Please help me if I've missed out on any of the questions.
I think you answered all the questions. Okay. I think you answered all the questions. So thank you so much, sir. Thanks so much. I think Dr. Idris Said wants to contribute more about the networking aspect. So please, you have the floor, ma. Thank you very much, ma.
Thank you very much. So what I wanted to say about the networking was, for me, when I wanted to start my USMLE journey, I was in-house job there. So I was never reading very well, but I was very proactive with my networking. So I started with this Kanji group. There's this Kanji group where it's mainly for IMGs, Africans, Nigerians. So when I joined Kanji, there's this weekly meeting they do on Thursdays. It's usually 12 a.m. Nigerian time. I made it that every week I must attend. So whenever I attend that meeting, I must network with one person or two. At times, I must network at least one person. So that gave me that connection with them. So that means I've networked with some people that we are in touch for, like, let's say 3 years now. So when it was time for me to apply, I didn't even need to ask. Some people, I didn't even know they were even noticing me in Kanji. They sent me message, send me your CV. People, I've not even like talked to them, but because I was consistent, attending always, they were noticing that, oh, this person is putting in the effort and she needed help. And they got me some interviews, because I didn't even expect I would ever get an interview from such programs. So that's how networking can really help you. So you can join the Kanji platform, just ask people around, they can add you to the group. For now, I think they've stopped the weekly presentations because of the March. Everybody's just anxious now. So where you can start from now is on the March day that week, they are going to do like a what do you usually call that thing? Just like a celebration, for people, the people that match, they should come and tell us their story. So I usually, when I attend that March meeting, that's every year, I'll take the names of everybody that matched. Because that time, those people are already having euphoria. They are very happy. Once you send them a message, you will answer, oh, I'm going to help you. Don't worry. When it's time, just talk to me. So in that moment, it's like you have networked with maybe 10, 15 hospitals. That's the meaning. Because you already had like people that are going into PGY1.
and they will also have people that can put a word for you when the time comes. Like me, like last year, there was someone I networked with, and the guy has not even matched then. They were anticipating. But what I kept that network by making sure that I don't just come and say, hello, I'm applying for match, you need to help me. I kept that network such that like every month, I'll just say, hello, I just want to check on you. I hope you're doing well. Because you need to check on them and show that care before they will reciprocate by caring for you. United States is lonely. If you show that, oh, I just want to check on you, I hope you are doing well, they take it very important to their hearts that when it's time, they can't even tell you no. Like me, I was late with my personal statement because I wrote my exams late. Everything was rushed. But anybody I sent, please check my personal statement. They just feel so heavy to tell me, no, I can't do it, I'm busy. So that's how networking can be. You need to make that network to be very strong. You don't make it selfish that it's only you that you want to gain. You also want to give something. And the only thing you can just give them now is just that support. Residency is hard. Always just being a nice person to them. And I think that's where you can start from.
Thank you so much, ma. I really appreciate your insights, and for you to even actually message directly to say you want to speak on that. That shows your passion to actually guide us. That's something we really do appreciate. So thank you so much, ma. So there was a question I missed, and I feel it's also suitable for you to answer, Dr. Idris. Like, how can we get research opportunities as students? Like, are there just shed some light on research opportunities as students, like students can get? Thank you. I think that is our last question for today. Thank you very much. Hello.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure if it was from me. Okay, yeah, anyway, I will take it. So, how you can get research opportunities as students. Of course, one of the things I would say is like the president mentioned about forming research groups, doing research within the group. I think that's one way. A lot of that, we have a lot of that here and then, pockets of that here and there. People coming together in groups to write case reports, write narrative reviews, and do some chat review studies as well. Then the other thing you can do is to reach out to people too on LinkedIn, especially residents who are pursuing fellowships. Many of them want to do, because research, one of the strongest points on your application going into the fellowship match is research. So residents want to get involved in as many research as possible, and they may have one or two projects going on. Then if you are able to build a good rapport with them, just let them know what you want. Then they may get you a certain part of the project to do, and then you get your name on the paper and even on abstracts going forward. So I think reaching out to people online and trying to get those interest groups here and there that are doing research. And if you have any if you can come up with any interesting idea too as well, reach out to people who may be able to guide you and be able to help in that regard. I would want to say that I know that the research landscape in Nigeria is much better than the way we left it, honestly, because many of us were striving then to even publish our final year public health stuff that we did, but it didn't materialize. But I know things are better now. So as students, I think your best bet is just reaching out to people online. And there are some faculties in Nigeria too, in medical schools, that are doing research and all that. You may want to find out about those ones, especially the younger ones, I would say. I've seen a couple of the people like that online. You may want to reach out to them. If you have them in your medical school, especially, that would be the best. Just talk to them about it, and they will be able to like get you in on one or two projects. But then I think online still remains the surest bet if you're in Nigeria at this time.
Thank you so much, sir. I think the reactions can start coming in for all our speakers. We really appreciate your time. We really appreciate everything, your dedication to know the time difference and still meeting up. Some even joined before some executives. So that's very much thing to applaud. So we really appreciate. And for a closing remark, this is just the beginning of this travel series. We are going to be having speakers from UK, from Canada, from Australia, also intermediary countries like Saudi Arabia, because you were hearing money, money, money. So I think one of the parts that some doctors do, they go practice in countries like Saudi Arabia or other opportune countries, they gather some money, they come and write exams. So we're still going to be having speakers that have gone through this part. And also, as I said earlier, concerning our research, we're going to be having our research training, our academic training, and we're also going to be having collaborations to get some certificates like the BLS and CPR and other certification like that, as we will also need all this training and program for our CV to build for a competitive match. So thank you very much for the speakers for joining us today. And thank you for everyone that attended. The IMGN really appreciates your time and your effort. And we hope that you were able to get much insight. And also, you can follow us on our LinkedIn pages on the group chat. You can just follow us, and you can also join our WhatsApp group so you don't miss out on any extra information. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.